Thanks. Hey, thank you very much. That's really wonderful, and thank you for all your tremendous effort and devotion to this wonderful cause. And although you explicitly stated, don't say we're good musicians, you were good musicians. It's really lovely. Well done, thank you. It's very enjoyable and a lovely presentation as well, as you said. I'm here because I've had the privilege of being friends with Radhanath Swami for ages now. A decade, I think it's been. When I met him, I was just ambling out of addiction, and I met him at Bhakti Devanta Manor, which some of you will be familiar with, is the property that George Harrison donated to Krishna Consciousness out in Watford. I was there rattling around and crazy and eccentric and looking for things to believe in. And I sort of met a few devotees there, and they said, "Oh, Radhanath Swami's going to be here, Radhanath Swami's going to be here." It was very much like, I don't know if any of you have seen Jesus Christ Superstar. In the earlier scenes, there's much hullabaloo and excitement about the onset and the, I believe it's before Jesus' arrival. I don't remember the exact plot of the musical. I seem to remember he was quite central. I met Radhanath Swami and felt instantly the kind of connect. Those of you that don't know him are about to have this experience, I should imagine. When I met him, what I felt was comparable only in my limited secular experience to what one feels when meeting a beautiful woman of the appropriate gender. Oh, for me it is woman, so but you know, hey, go crazy, live your lives. A sense of incredible, inexpressible excitement. I thought, well, this person has something that I want. What is it? What is it? I was unable to identify it. I was unable to directly identify what I wanted from him. And it made me speak real rapid and fast. I wasn't taking drugs anymore. But when you first stop taking drugs, if you take drugs all the time, it's kind of like a drug. So like I was in this like fast-paced, manic space. And when I saw him, emanating, silently humming, wordlessly almost floating into view, I said, oh, what are you going to tell me? The reality is all an illusion, that it's all a construct of consciousness, that there's veil after veil of reality constructed for us. I spend all my time on Xbox or wherever it was then. So how many layers of illusion am I living in? And he just laughed, really, sincerely, a beautiful laugh, quite crazy, you'll probably hear it over the course of his lecture. And pulled my head into his chest, and I felt instantly calm. After this we had a friendship where we would meet, and he has a capacity to introduce truth effortlessly. And I suppose that's what we're all looking for, isn't it? An authentic relationship with reality, not one that's filtered, diluted, smothered in saccharin, presented to us to conveniently reappropriate our emotions and drives to the causes and objectives to those that govern us. Radhanath Swami is able to deliver truth. Yeah, that's what I was slip things in. Radhanath Swami, we've all got an agenda. Radhanath Swami for me is, earlier on you were talking, how do I say the name? Janavi was talking about like teachers and stuff. I was thinking about Radhanath Swami then. He's one of the great teachers that I've met. Today is his Guru Prabhupada's birthday. That means a lot to him. So happy birthday, Prabhupada. So it's an auspicious day for us all to be here, and it's for me it's always a privilege. I've only introduced him once before, but it was a privilege then, and it's a privilege now to introduce to you a very great man. Please give a round of applause and open your minds real wide now for Radhanath Swami.
Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Suryavadi Paschatyate Satharine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. It's my great honor and pleasure to be with all of you today. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you, Russell, for your very kind, gracious introduction. Loving words. Isabella, we're so happy you're here. Genevieve, thank you for arranging this beautiful event. A few days ago, I was just walking around London minding my own business. I'd like to tell you what happened. One of my friends, Jaini Tai, was in the back. He said, as we were walking, he said, "To our right side is the British Museum. Would you like to go in?" So I was thinking, and when I was a little boy, I once saw a movie that took place in the British Museum. So I said, "Yes, I'll go in. Does it cost money?" He said, "No, it's free." So we went in. And a few minutes later, I was face to face with a painted box, and inside that box was the mummy of Cleopatra. It's amazing what a couple thousand years could do to a beautiful woman's body. There was a little explanation that said that she died when she was 17 years and 9 months old. It made quite an impact on the world. We went to some other things and saw some of the incredible wealth of India in the British Museum. And I was remembering at that time when my guru, Srila Prabhupada, whose birthday it is today, thank you, Russell, for reminding us. He came to London in 1969, and he was challenged by a journalist. "Why have you come to our country? We have our religion, we have our culture. Why have you come?" Srila Prabhupada replied that the British controlled India for about 2 centuries. And you plundered and took practically all the treasures of wealth of India and brought it to London. But the greatest treasure, the crown jewel of the wealth of India, is in its spiritual culture. I have come to bring you what you forgot to take. What is real wealth? The purpose of wealth, the purpose of life, ultimately, is everyone is in a search for pleasure, for happiness. Anandamayo Vyashat. It's the most fundamental, essential need for every living being. Whether we're prime ministers, or whether we're little frogs, or even the fly that the frog eats. Everyone is looking for pleasure. And wealth gives the promise to facilitate pleasure. There was something that happened to me when I was a teenager that seriously shook my whole conception of what was valuable in life. It was at a time when I was 19 years old, and I was hitchhiking because I didn't have money from London to India. It took about 6 months. Now I take British Airways and it takes 8 hours. It's not as scenic, not as life-changing, but much safer. Anyways, during my journey, I was in a city called Kandahar in Afghanistan. And I was just with the local people. Because when you have nothing, you really get to know people because you're depending on them. So I was in a little tea stall. It was just a shack with a clay floor, and there were no chairs. Everyone was squatting down, so I was squatting next to them, and they gave me tea. It was tea without milk, just a cube of sugar melting on the bottom of it. And as there was about 6 of us, we were drinking our tea, and then this boy walked in. Maybe 15 or 16 years old. He was wearing filthy rags. He had this torn up turban on his head. He was emaciated then. But what really affected me is he was blind. His eyes were not covered, and they were so disfigured and seriously ugly, swollen. He came in like this. He was holding this musical instrument. It was a stick, just a branch from a tree. And on one end of it, there was an old rusty tin can that was nailed to the branch. And then there was this wire that went from one end to the other end, and it was wound around and nailed to the other end. He began to play it. It wasn't like a sitar or a guitar. It was blum, 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 like that. And as he was playing blum, blum, he began to sing. And from material standards, he didn't have a melodious voice, but he was singing with such deep feeling. He was singing beautiful songs about God. They were spiritual songs. The emotion of how he was singing, the smile that blossomed on his face, he completely captivated all of us. We couldn't even drink our tea. It was getting cold. We were just looking up at him, mesmerized. This was a culture shock for me. I was brought up in the suburbs of Chicago in America, and I knew very wealthy, very powerful, very successful people, beautiful people, healthy people. This boy was totally illiterate. He was in poverty. He had horrible health. But the way he sang and the way he smiled, I was thinking, this is the happiest person I've ever seen in my life. What is happiness? What is pleasure? We can take so many things, but things can only give some pleasure to the senses and the mind. But real pleasure is something of the heart. And only love can touch the heart. Love means to love and to feel being loved. And I saw in this boy a true love I never saw before. It was the love of the heart for God. And he was singing with that little drum, 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 drum. Music has always been such a effective, wonderful, powerful way of expressing our convictions, our feelings, and ultimately our love. If we think back, most of us, we will find that music has been like a soundtrack to our life. I know my father, to this day, he's 89 years old. He still listens to the same music he listened to when he was a teenager. And he thinks everything else is rubbish. And I remember when I was a teenager, I thought, don't you get it, Father? This is it. You know, the British invasion, they came and so much good music in America. In the 1960s, the musicians were the poets, the philosophers, the activists. They were setting the theme for the whole culture of how the generation thought. But now, when I see the people that I grew up with, in their 60s, they're listening to the music they listened to when they were teenagers. And most of them think that everything since there's kind of rubbish. So music really has such a powerful effect of molding our consciousness and giving meaning and feeling to us. And the origin of music is the heart and the soul crying out to be connected with the Supreme Soul. Classical music began in the cathedrals and the churches. Gospel music, which is very much the basis of rock and roll and blues and soul music, was crying out for God's grace. The ragas of India are spiritual sound vibrations. Each note and the combinations of the notes are meant to connect our consciousness to divine consciousness. The word mantra means a sacred sound vibration. Man means the mind. Trayate means to liberate. It's a sacred sound vibration that liberates the consciousness, the mind, from anxieties, from sufferings, and awakens true happiness. It's like tuning in. You see, there's so many frequencies all over the place. We take for granted so much. The sun is unbelievable. The sun has been shining the same way for hundreds of millions of years, and it doesn't get any smaller. And nobody's like piping fuel into it or putting wood into it. How is that? Because fire needs fuel. But the sun just keeps burning and burning and burning and burning. And we look at the sun every morning and every night, and we put on sunglasses and we put on sunscreen. Well, we should be grateful. What a miracle the sun is. It's the source of all life. Anyways, television. It's kind of a man-made miracle that's using all the resources of the sun and the earth and everything else. It's quite incredible. When I was a young boy, there were 4 stations. Now there's about 100 stations, or 200 stations. And it's quite incredible. You just press a button. When I was a boy, you'd have to get up from your bed. Can you believe this? You had to get up from your bed and walk all the way across the room, step over your dog, and then you had to turn a dial. And then whenever you turn the dial, there's a different frequency, so the antenna on the top, so it's like this, you have to rearrange it. The picture would go like that. Now you just lay there in bed, and you tune into one frequency, and you're seeing the Olympics in London. You press another button, instantly, it's amazing. It's not like you have to call the operator and say, please, I want to order the news from Baghdad. It's just instantly there. You press another button, Thursday night, and you tune into Brand X.
Good promo, thank you.
That's my dear brother and friend Russell Brand's television show on FX TV. And there you'll see him in his own unique, incredible way, discussing the current events of the world in very thrilling, soul-searching ways. And you push another button, and you get a soap opera. It's like girls crying. So according to what you tune into, you connect to that frequency and access it. Well, within the universe today, there are so many frequencies. We don't see them. But it's amazing because you don't see the frequencies there's hundreds of frequencies. You just press a button and it comes right on your television screen. There's the frequency of collective greed, generosity, arrogance, humility, selfish passion, selfless compassion. These energies are all around us. What are we going to tune into? What we tune into is what we're going to experience and get highly influenced by. A mantra tunes us in to the divine frequency. And there's different levels of divine frequencies too. Believe it or not, there's different stations in the spiritual realm. Can I tell you about it? Some frequency you tune in by chanting a particular mantra with a particular motivation, and you get shanti, peace. Others, you tune into a frequency and you can actually perform supernatural powers. I've seen it with my own eyes. Yogis, they chant a mantra and they could just create gold. I remember thinking, when I saw somebody create gold, I said, so what? People buy gold too. It doesn't make them any. I don't think it's going to make you happier whether you create it or buy it. Gold is gold. But mystic powers. Through chanting mantras, people could read people's minds, could travel in incredible ways. There's a spiritual frequency when we chant a mantra where we can achieve mukti. Mukti is like It's a state of nirvana, complete liberation and freedom from all suffering, the cessation of birth and death in all dualities. But in Bhakti Yoga, there's a frequency which is considered the most inclusive and the highest of all frequencies. It's the frequency of prema, divine love, spiritual love. And that love is dormant within all of us. It is our greatest potential, and it's the cause of the deepest satisfaction. By chanting this mantra, it awakens that love. And when there is love for God, it's like watering the root of the tree. Automatically, every part of the tree is satisfied. Vidyavanaya sampane brahmani kavihastini suni chaiva svabhakecha pandita samadarsha. This means that when real realization is when we see every living being with equal vision. When we love Krishna or God, naturally, spontaneously, there is love for all living beings. There is love for nature. That is what Kirtan is. Yes, it's enjoyable. Yes, it soothes the mind from the anxieties and the stress of life. Yes, it liberates us from so many confusions and so many unhappy situations. But beyond that, this kirtan has the potential of awakening our deepest potential, our own very spiritual essence. And then we can be an instrument of that essence, which is the greatest joy of life. Taking just feeds the fire of our longings in life. But when we learn to find satisfaction in being an instrument, in giving, there's actual fulfillment. Kirtan inspires us, cleanses us, and empowers us to uncover that treasure that is within us. In the Vedic literatures, there are so many verses that describe the wonderful effects of kirtan. Nam namakari bahuda nija sarva shaktis. My dear Lord, you have descended in the beautiful sound of these mantras, of these names. And you have many, many names. It is not a sectarian concept. In all the great spiritual traditions throughout history, there are sound vibrations, names of God that connect us to that one supreme essence within us, to that supreme, all-lovable person who is the object of every soul's love. And Lord Chaitanya, he explained, he quoted one beautiful verse, Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasmika. There's no hard and fast rules for chanting the names of the Lord. Anyone can do it. A child, a scholar, a simple illiterate person, blind, playing on a little tree branch. Actually, George Harrison, he played a really nice tree branch, actually. Here in London, he met my guru and they became very, very dear friends. And one of my closest friends, his name is Shyam Sundar, was one of George's closest associates. And he told me one day George was sitting in his house and he turned on the television. And there was a TV show in the 60s in London called Top of the Pops. Have any of you ever seen it? Is it still on?
No.
I've never seen it, but I've heard about it. Anyways, this was, I'll go back a little. When my guru Srila Prabhupada came, George arranged for him to live at John Lennon's estate, and they would meet a lot. And he arranged on Apple Records the devotees of Krishna to make a record called the Radha Krishna Temple. And they were just chanting these beautiful mantras, the Hare Krishna mantra. By George's efforts, the Hare Krishna mantra, which Janavi was playing, became the #1 song on the record charts in Europe. So the devotees were invited to all of these events, like big famous bands were the warm-up bands for these people just playing like this. So one day George turned on the television and he saw some devotees chanting the Hare Krishna mantra on the Top of the Pops. And George told Shyam Sundar he was crying. It was one of the happiest moments in his entire life. He said, he had already gone through the peaks of the successes of the Beatles. He told my friend, we played at big stadiums in America. We played in coliseums. We were on the biggest television shows. When the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show, more people watched television on that day than in the history of TV, by far. He said, but the pleasure, the inner happiness I had seeing the devotees chanting this mantra on television was so much greater than anything I experienced in the Beatles or any other time. What was that fulfillment? That these simple, sincere people were giving this mantra to the whole world. That brought him such happiness. And he also explained this song a little later, My Sweet Lord. He considered, even though he was sued for recording it, because it sounded like some song from the early 60s or something, he said even though he had to go to court and everything, it was he considers it the greatest accomplishment he made. Because this beautiful sound vibration of God's name affected so many people's hearts. It wasn't about money for him. It was about giving. And it's true. When we love means to give. To love God means to give that love to others. Janavi was explaining how this Kirtan is such an ancient process. It's actually been from the beginning of time in India. And in many ways, in every religious tradition, there is the chanting of hymns, there is the singing, there is the dancing. In the Bible, Old Testament, King David said, let us play our instruments and dance and sing God's name. It's Kirtan. It's been there forever. In India, Lord Chaitanya especially promoted this about 500 years ago. And he made it available for everyone. There wasn't a consideration of where you're from, what your sex is, what your race is, what your religion is, what your education is. He gave this opportunity for everyone to tune in and access that love for God. He used to go out to the villages, to the cities, to the towns, and he would sing a beautiful little song. Jeev Jago, Gaura Chandra Bole, Kota Nidra Jayo Maya Pisachira Kole. Wake up, sleeping souls. Do you not know that you're eternal? Satchidananda. The living force within the body that's seeing through the eyes and hearing through the ears and tasting through the tongue and feeling through the flesh and thinking through the brain, that living force that's in the vehicle of this body and mind is Satchidananda, eternal, full of knowledge and full of happiness. And that happiness is love. That is who we are. But we're sleeping. Just like in a dream. You could be in a very nice... Actually, it happened to me. I guess I have to make a confession now. I was... Just last week I was in London and some friend of them, very, very dear friends of mine from Mumbai, they have a beautiful home in Mayfair section of London, and they had me giving a lecture there, and then I slept there that night. It was a beautiful room. In Mumbai, I sleep on a straw mat in a little tiny room with cow-dung walls. But here I'm in this beautiful room, I'm sleeping, and I'm having this very strange dream. And I remember when you're having a dream, you think you're someone else, and you think you're somewhere else. And then I woke up, and I was thinking, well, this is another kind of dream. But when you're dreaming, if you're dreaming that you're falling from a cliff, you're really suffering. But when you wake up and you realize you're in a nice bed, there's no more suffering. So we are distracted from our own spiritual essence in the dream that I am all the designations of this body. I'm male or female or black or white or red or yellow. Or I'm Hindu or Muslim or Jew or Christian or Jain or Sikh or Parsi or agnostic or atheist or I don't know what else. These are all dreams. We're actually eternal, loving beings. And knowledge and love for God is our inherent nature. So Lord Chaitanya said, wake up. Interesting, when you're sleeping, if someone, writes a sign, wake up, sir, you don't wake up. Usually there's an alarm clock. Drum, 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 drum. Wakes you up. And now there's so many exotic alarm clocks. Alarm clocks that chant mantras now. But sound wakes us up. There's a beautiful story. Take it the way you like, but it's very instructive. Lord Chaitanya was once traveling by foot, this is 500 years ago, from Puri in East India to Vrindavan, which is in the center of India. And as he was traveling, he went through a dense forest called Jarikanda. Now in those days, tigers were not endangered species. They ruled over the forest. And these were Bengali tigers. And they especially like human flesh. So Lord Chaitanya was dancing through the forest and chanting Kirtan. And he was with one assistant. And there was a gigantic male Bengali tiger laying right in the footpath of the jungle. So the assistant was thinking, I hope we don't wake him. But Sri Chaitanya went right up to that tiger, put his foot on the tiger's sleeping head, and kicked him. And said, "Rise and chant the names Hari Hari." Hari is the name of God. It means one who steals. Hari means one who steals one's mind, one's heart, away from all the superficialities, the hypocrisies, the cheating propensities, and the sufferings of this world by the beauty, the sweetness, and the charm of the Lord. So he said, "Chant Hari Hari." And the tiger looked up at him like, "What?" But Lord Chaitanya looked at that tiger with such affection, with such love. He wasn't seeing a tiger body. He was seeing a brother, a sister. He was seeing the soul. Aham bija pradapita. On the spiritual level, we are all brothers and sisters. Wherever there's life, it is sacred. It touched that tiger's heart so deeply that the tiger leaped up on his hind legs, picked up his front paws, and roared, "Hari! Hari!" Something like that. Hari! And as he was chanting Hari Hari, he was dancing, and tears of love were pouring down from his eyes and streaming through his fur, and all of his hair stood on end in ecstasy. As Lord Chaitanya moved on, that tiger attained the perfection of samadhi, prema bhakti, love of divine love. And as the Lord was, Sri Chaitanya was going on the path, so many tigers were passing on were following him on one side. And on the other side of the path, there was a whole flock of deer. Now, for those of you who know the social dynamics of the jungle, tiger and deer are worst enemies. The reason? It's very simple. Tigers eat deers. They jump on them, they eat their flesh, and they drink their blood. And they do it while they're still living. So deers hate tigers, and tigers hate deer. They love to eat them. So they're very much enemies. But on this day, the deers were so attracted to Sri Chaitanya's beautiful, loving feelings. And the tigers were following. Sri Chaitanya turned around and told them, "Chant Hari Hari." They started to chant these beautiful mantras. And when they chanted the mantra, prema, ecstatic love awakened in their hearts. And then something so esoteric took place. Each deer and tiger paired off and embraced. This is quite historical. They danced together like a dance hall, you know, tiger, deer, tiger, deer. They were embracing, dancing. And according to the scripture, it describes each tiger and deer in pure spiritual emotion kissed each other on the lips. No, I'm not saying you should do that. That's what they did. All their animosity due to their bodily conceptions, due to their historical animosity between the two species, was gone when they understood each other on this higher principle. In the world today, there's so much conflict. Conflict between religious groups, conflict between ethnic groups, conflict between races. And many of these conflicts, we don't really even know why we hate each other. It's just something that has been passed down through generations. The only way to really resolve that is to understand our relationships on a higher and deeper level than these superficial reasons we're fighting. Yoga means unity, union, union with our own soul, union with God, Ishvara, and union with each other on a spiritual level. This is what the great saints throughout history have taught us. The science of Kirtan can do. It can awaken that love within our hearts. It can awaken that sacred space within us that is beyond all the sunny days and stormy days of this, the dualities of this life. It awakens within us a compassion by which we could be instruments of real changes. So just like they were doing today, maybe without the microphones and sound systems, Kirtan has been going on for centuries and centuries and millenniums as ways of bringing people together to harmonize our hearts and our souls. In 1965, my guru, whose birthday it is today, came from India to America. And he started this movement just by doing kirtan. He was a 70-year-old man, and he sat in the Lower East Side of New York in Tompkins Square Park. He just sat on the ground, and somebody gave him a bongo drum. It was really an old bongo drum, because usually you don't give a Swami a new bongo drum. Usually you give away something old. At least that's the way it is. It's an old bongo drum. I saw it. I used to play it, actually. And he just sat there under this tree and played his bongo with one hand and chanted this beautiful mantra. And the first time he went out, he was on some grass, and a policeman yelled at him, "You can't sit on the grass." A 70-year-old saint coming from a holy place in India, so he very politely said, "Oh, I'm sorry," sat on the sidewalk. And he chanted. And from that, an explosion of a spiritual movement took place. Soon there were dozens of people chanting with him, and soon there were hundreds, and soon there were thousands. At one time, have you heard of Haight-Ashbury? That was the Mecca, the Jerusalem of the hippies in the 60s. In 1967, Srila Prabhupada went to Haight-Ashbury, and some of his students arranged what they called a mantra rock dance. It was at the Avalon Ballroom. There was the Fillmore and the Avalon. And my friend Shyam Sundar, he was one of the organizers. They had arranged playing for free, because they had no money, the devotees, just to raise some funds to get a little storefront to make into a temple where the people could come to do kirtan. All of the famous bands of California agreed to play. There was the Grateful Dead, Janis Joplin, Jefferson Airplane, Canned Heat, Quicksilver Messenger Service, and Moby Grape. These were the great bands of those days. I don't know if you ever heard of them. They were all playing. this was coming. Okay. So, they're playing their guitars, their drum sets. They had these light shows, strobe lights. And then Srila Prabhupada came on stage, 70-year-old saint from India, with these little hand cymbals. And he started chanting, and there were thousands and thousands of people in the audience. Timothy Leary and Ken Kesey and all the icons of the generation. They were all dancing in Kirtan, and the Kirtan became so sweet. It intoxicated people. Everyone there was saying, this is higher than LSD. Now for a hippie to say that, that's the ultimate compliment. It's higher than marijuana, higher than LSD. They were all intoxicated, their souls singing and dancing this beautiful mantra of Hare Krishna. And even the musicians, they came on stage and started playing their bass guitars and lead guitars and double bass drum sets. And this poor Swami from India, they just went on chanting and chanting and chanting. So just sharing that love with the world. So in this and similar ways, Kirtan has spread into the Western world in a very, very beautiful way. And I'm so happy that here in London, Janavi and Kishori and others are creating this wonderful, wonderful opportunity for people to come together, to awaken that great treasure that is within all of us, to bring peace, to bring love to ourselves and to the world. Thank you very much.
Very, very much, Radhanath Swami, for coming here this evening. And thank you very, very much to all of you for staying with us. I'm really excited to see you again at future events, if you'd like to. We have some mailing list sign-up sheets if you want to stay connected with the project as we grow. And of course, you can check out the Facebook and the website, as we said. I also really want to offer thanks firstly to all the musicians, Krishna Lila, Sandy, Ananda, Namras, and Tulsi. Also to our whole team, Kirtan London, we have a little team. We've been meeting every week. We've had very long meetings just to prepare this event for you, and we're very inspired to keep going. So I want to thank everyone following me. There's quite a few. Maybe you can raise your hands if you're part of the team. Okay. They're busy. They're working. So, and just one more thing, two more things. We have a wonderful meal for you now. If you'd like to take some before you go home. We also have some CDs and books if you want to check out. There's some things on the table there. And we have a small gift for you, so don't forget to take that as you go out downstairs. Thank you very, very much. And